convincing before people automatically change back to supporting the party. That's the challenge we've got, by the way. And if we cannot get that coalition back, we cannot win them 48 seats in the Leave areas that we lost in 2019. We don't win an election. And, Kerry-Anne, I'm sorry for ranting, and the party knew this on the run-up to the 2019 election.
I was going to say, I think one of the really fascinating things about this, because obviously there could be people listening going, well, you know, the cart and the horse are the wrong way round here, Ian. You know, we all know now why people were disaffected from the Labour Party. You know, well done, Captain Hindsight Mendoza. But in reality, you said this before that election. You know, the Northern Discomfort report. You know, which was kind of your kind of answer to the Southern discomfort. You know, you did actually put in that hoofwork prior to that election to warn really the party as a whole of the danger of the strategy that it was adopting with, you know, back in the second referendum, which I think anyone with an ounce of integrity and political nous knew was going to have devastating consequences for the Labour vote in that next election.
You know what, Kerry-Anne, you know what was really annoying, because you can win the argument, you know, and still not advance. But really what was happening right way through the Brexit argument, when, you know, I was national campaign coordinator, and myself and Jon Trickett at Shadow Cabinet meetings and at other meetings were continually saying, look, this is what the polls are suggesting, this is what will happen. But there were some very, very senior people indeed on the Shadow Cabinet and at these meetings who had lots and lots of different polling, which indicated, for example, my constituency, everybody had changed their mind and people realised they had made a mistake. And if we didn't change immediately to be a party that supported a people's vote, a second referendum, that we would lose 50 to 60 seats to the Liberal Democrats. It was never going to happen. People were misled. They were marched down the garden path. And yet now you see the very same people at senior level who haven't been kicked out of the Shadow Cabinet like me and Trickett were, by the way. That was pretty hurtful, you know. I like being in the Shadow Cabinet, but I got kicked out.
Yeah, we liked having you there, Ian, to be honest. It's nice to have a working class warrior in that cabinet. And, you know, you see these voices getting increasingly, you know, pushed out. And it's almost like the same things happening to the working class MPs as has happened to the working class voters. You know, it's like, we know best. You know, we know best. We don't need to, you know, kind of listen to you guys. It's no way to run a party, to me.
Well, it's that we're going through some extreme difficulties, but it's called the struggle. It's called the struggle, and as I always say, at least a million times in any day, you know, it's not called the struggle for anything, for no reason whatsoever. But I mean, we warned them. They warned us that people wouldn't. I mean, I said at one stage, by the way, that I didn't think that there would be a massive amount of Labour voters that would sway from the Labour Party to the Tory Party. I was proved slightly wrong on that, because they did. I knew people had had enough, but I didn't realise how much they had had enough. And it had been embedded in a lot of people, not just from 2015, right before that in the early 90s, that people had become impatient with the Labour Party. So, you know, it's been a challenge. But I think, you know, that's why, listen, Kerry-Anne, that's why the report suggests that if we're serious in winning back the red wall areas, we've got, the party have got to make an apology. We've got to draw a line under it. It's not, you know, making an apology wouldn't, you know, like draw to a close, but it would go some way to show that the party weren't in the right position. And you shouldn't just take people for granted. You shouldn't tell people to come and vote. Many of them come to vote in 2016 for the first time. And whether they were right, whether they were wrong, we live in a democratic country. And that was the, you know, one of the massive issues, man.
Well, I think it was almost undoing the great work of 2017 because, you know, one of the things Jeremy Corbyn had going for him, and, you know, my sort of friendship group, you know, I've got a lot of people I'm still in contact with from school. You know, we've all lived very different kind of lives, and some of us are very political and some of us are not political at all. But there was a common understanding that the anti-establishment candidate was Jeremy Corbyn. So if you were angry at the establishment and you wanted change, and a change that would benefit the many and not the few, you would vote for Jeremy Corbyn. And between 2017 and 2019, that was completely eroded. And, you know, as we've all identified, and the report identifies very loudly, that kind of change and that move on the Brexit vote, you know, we are the party of Remain, as Keir Starmer was, you know, want to say, really shattered that moment. You know, it broke that sense that we were in charge of the party now. Working class people were in charge of the party now, not a handful of mandarins stuck in Westminster who didn't know anything about our lives and didn't care about us. Working class people were back in politics. Working class politics is back. And then that U-turn kind of shattered it. But that wasn't the only thing that shattered it. What were kind of some other elements of things that people told you, Ian, that you thought, wow, okay, you know, that I can see how that impacted their vote? What stood out for you, aside from the obvious being Brexit?
I want to read something to you, which if I can find on my desk here, which is just unbelievable. Let us just read this. It'll take 30 seconds.
Sure thing. Go for it.
When we were discussing the issues on the virtual tour, these are 3 comments that were made. It was hard work on the doorstep. I feared hostility wearing a rosette. I campaigned in this area, knocking on Labour voting doors to get out the vote, and people were very angry and shouting at the activists in the Northeast. In the past, you could have a transformative conversation on the doorstep, but not now. It's almost become a social norm in working class communities to be anti-Labour. Now, who would have thought? They are very strong words and deeds. That's what people were telling me, John and Laura. And it's, you know, it's quite hurtful to think that. And these aren't fools. These people we were talking to were, you know, a cross section of society. And the whole idea is to listen to what they've had to say. And that's why we put these things in the report. So, you know, we listen to what people have got to say. And it's true, you know, people were knocking on doors, and there was a lot of hostility in rock solid areas. I mean, how on earth did we lose Blythe Valley, for example? It's just beyond me. It's only 2 miles from where I live, being Labour forever and a day. How did we lose that? And it's simple. It was because of right-wing populism. It was because of a simple message that we'll get Brexit done, telling people that their lives are going to be much, much better. Because a lot of these people, you know, who voted to leave, by God, they're not racist, you know, Kerry-Anne. And it has been suggested that people who voted leave were racist, white working class racist scum. How dare anybody suggest that to be the case? Because it definitely wasn't. Certainly wasn't in my area. Certainly wasn't in the likes of Blythe Valley. But people have had a shit life, you know, Kerry-Anne. People feel left behind for generations, and things haven't changed, regardless of who's been in power. People have had a shit life, and a lot of them thought, well, you know, why do we not try and give this a break if we leave? Because Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson and the likes say we're going to have a much better life. And then the media, who were, you know, right behind these people. That wasn't a fair and balanced media on the run up to the Brexit. Look at what Sky News did. Sky News, it was the Brexit news for nearly a year, man.
It really was. You couldn't move for it. I found it incredibly cynical the way all that just stopped. By the way, the morning after the election, it was like, oh, done. We don't care about it anymore. Both sides. It wasn't, it wasn't just Brexiteers. It was the Remainers as well that had been going apocalyptic, for 2 years. That everyone's going to die, and all of this stuff. And then it was like the moment they got rid of Corbyn, they all went, oh no, it's actually socialism that we were worried about. we didn't mind about Brexit.
I always say it. I spoke at hundreds of meetings, over the year, and I always say that we've got to make sure that we get past this Brexit hurdle, and we've got to focus on the policies which the party have put forward, because the policies in 2017, the policies in 2019, well, quite simply everything I've ever wanted and campaigned for since I was 14 years of age. It was utopia, political utopia for me. I was delighted with what we had come up with. And for the first time, like in the Labour and Trade Union movement, I thought we had something that really replicated socialism and would give everybody the chance in society. And we couldn't get those that turned their back on the party really are the most vulnerable, the ones that are in most need. We're talking about people who are in low paid employment, they live in rundown areas, lack of investment, poor hospital facilities, poor schools, living on benefits, many of them working and claiming universal credit just to make ends meet, many people working, using food banks, many people working and, as I say, claiming benefits from the state to basically make up for the poor employment rights they had in whatever economy that they were working in. So it was very difficult. It was a concoction of all them things. But I'm telling you, Brexit was the reason why we lost the election, and people need to accept that. I got lots of abuse,
I think can I just tell you? Don't get, because I think part of the problem is they don't understand why people voted Brexit, and as you and I both know, there is a terrible habit among centrists to decide what we all think, and then just chat about it without ever having bothered to actually engage any of us in a conversation to find out what we actually think. And I did see that happen with Brexit. And I say this as someone who voted to remain simply because I didn't believe there would be a left-wing version of Brexit in time. And I thought, Christ, this could be a nightmare if the Tories get hold of Brexit. So I'm just going to hedge my bets for now. I've got no love for the European Union. It's been a disaster for a lot of reasons, but let's not get dragged off into that. But I did vote Remain.
But carry on, listen.
But what gets me, I actually ended up almost being ashamed that I was associated with people that had voted Remain, because the level of arrogance was just breathtaking, and the level, and actually the lack of curiosity about why people were voting was also an issue. And as a journalist and as an autistic person, because we're deadly curious as autistics, I'm fascinated. I was fascinated by how did this happen? Why did it happen? What are people saying? And I had a conversation. My wife had a reunion of schoolmates, and there's a guy there, same age as me, white guy, voting UKIP, working class, voting UKIP. UKIP don't have any policies that can help working class, don't have any policies. So I said, but why? And he said, oh, well, the thing is, I get immigrants coming around, our workplace, they got these sandwich boards on saying, I'll work for whatever, and and then our boss will sack us and they'll take the immigrant on. And I said, but wait, I thought you liked capitalism. I thought you were all about capitalism. So why aren't you angry at your boss, actually, who made the decision to hire that person over you to save a bit of money? Like, what's that about? And he said, and I will never forget this, he said, well, I'm never going to be able to do anything about the boss. And it has stuck with me ever since. And I think about the way that this, the 1992, the Southern Discomfort Report, that whole Labour, the new Labour, I should say, let's distinguish, the new Labour idea that Thatcher was right in terms of there is no alternative. So if you accept that there is no alternative to this, there just isn't, then all you leave people is the fight over the crumbs. That's all you leave people. And so they fight to the death over crumbs without realizing that there's a whole freaking cake over there with 2 people eating it, and there's a million of us over here fighting over scraps. And so it is, to me, like everything I'm reading in that report, all of those voices kept going back to that UKIP voter for me, of the only thing that they could see possible is the way it is now. So they're just trying to kind of duke it out inside of that hideously unfair, resource scarce scenario, rather than believing that there isn't just an alternative, there are like lots of alternatives that we could be doing. And that comes back to one of the key elements of the report, which is around communications, how the party communicates ideas. Because there was this strong sense that in 2017, everyone got it. They got what the party was standing for, what a Corbyn leadership would deliver, and who was going to benefit from it. Somehow in 2019 that changed. I would argue a big part of that was the media, and that Purdo, the sort of the competition rules were actually honoured roughly in 2017. I don't think any of us can pretend that they were in 2019. It was a markedly different scenario where you just, they would not talk about a Labour policy unless it was one they wanted to trash. That's why everyone knows about free broadband. No one knows about the Green New Deal. Because, they would only seem to talk about Labour in the context that they would try and mock something. So with that in mind, where does Labour go, and where does the left of Labour go in terms of communicating messages if it's not going to have a mainstream media that is going to allow it to do that?
Well, there's a massive debate and discussion to be had with regard to that, because it's a great question. And the basics are that you will never get the messaging across with the current mainstream media. We've got to look at expanding the left-wing media outlets, and there's a whole number now, and we've got to look to try and ensure that they get the correct financial support and the support of people in the community, so they can actually get a proper understanding on what life's like outside the front door. And with genuine people speaking, giving the message across, trying to convince people of what you actually stand for. The second thing is you've got to have the messages, Kerry-Anne. You've got to have something which you can sell to around the kitchen table politics, where people understand what you're talking about. When you come in from work, you sit and you can say, well, that's what that means, instead of this weird type of language, political language, which gets lost on lots of people who, there's another politician who speaks for an hour and says absolutely bugger all, just confuses people and think they've done a good job in doing so. You've seen what the Tories do. And they just stuck to it. They didn't even promote many policies in 2019. They didn't push many policies. They published a few in the manifesto, but it was just get Brexit done. Get Brexit done. Take power back. We'll take just very simple messages. And, to be fair, the media gave Johnson and his cronies a running kick at the electorate. Every time Johnson was asked a question anywhere, Johnson would say, we'll get Brexit done. What do you think of the House of the State in your constituency? Well, we'll get Brexit done. What we need is get Brexit done. And people were sick of it, but everybody knew what the message was. So we weren't great at getting the message out with the fine policies we had. And we've got to hold ourselves to them policies, mate, because that's not where we went wrong. People were
you didn't lose that on the policies.
And I think I was involved in the 7 o'clock meetings, 6 o'clock meetings on many occasions on the run up to the election every morning, 7 days a week. Right, this is the policies we're going to unveil today. And we had some fantastic policies, But I think one of the mistakes was that we didn't talk through and explain what each policy meant before we jumped onto the next one, and then jumped onto the next one, and we just looked like kids in a sweetie shop. Well, this is what we're having. We're going to have all of these together, and your life's going to be brilliant. The reality is, what we had on offer would have given lots of people hope. We wanted to give justice. We wanted to give fairness. We wanted to give equality. We wanted to give people a standard of life which they would be very happy with, not just crumbs off the bloody table. So, you know, we probably weren't brilliant at messaging. And another thing, Kerry-Anne, I'm sorry for ranting, but another really, really important thing is the digital campaigning. You know, we've got to forget the idea that you just knock on somebody's door with it. Once the election's called, getting your board out, knocking on somebody's door and say, hello, I'm Kerry-Anne Mendoza from the Labour Party. Who did you vote for that last time? Good. Who did you vote for this strike? That's fine. Can we get, right, thank you very much. We've got to listen to people, man. We've got to listen to what they say. And we've got different major priorities in the North, in the Midlands, in the South, in the Southeast, in the Southwest, in Scotland. Massively different priorities, political priorities. And we've got to listen to what people have got to say and not just tell people what's wrong with their life.
On that note, I've got to do the same, and I promised you that we would be 45 minutes, but unfortunately we are now at 45 minutes. We have 3 questions. Would you be willing to have those questions? Thank you so much. I apologize. I made a promise. I broke it. Look at me. Right. So first of all, we've got Mandy McKenna.
It's normally the politicians, Kerry-Anne, that break their promises. No, it's the journalists. Lie.
I know. I'm giving you a night off. I'm going to take this one for the team.
Sorry.
Mandy McKenna asks, so the party needs to put more money into the CLPs, and the Labour Party need to unite and work more closely with the unions. That isn't going to happen under Starmer. CLPs are being undermined, disempowered and silenced. What can we do?
I'll tell you what not to do, and that's leave the party. Because you cannot change the Labour Party if you're not a member of the Labour Party. So, you know, it really disappoints me to hear people say, right, I'm leaving. This has happened. I've been a member of the party for 30-odd years. I actually lived in the Blair years where I woke up every morning saying, what the heck am I in this party for? I should be like aware, and I realised that no matter what warts and all, no matter what the situation was, a Labour party or the potential for a Labour government was always better than the worst, you know, the worst Labour government, worst Labour party was always better than any Tory party. But there are problems at this moment in time. We've got a new leadership team. They came into being, you know, in April this year, the same time as COVID-19. There's a lot of challenges, and I honestly understand what Matthew says with regard to the CLPs and what appears to be coming from the new leadership. And you know, like always, we've got to challenge these issues, and you know we have, and there isn't any reason why we cannot win if we're constructive and do the right thing. Because you know, hopefully the national conference will be back very shortly. You know what I'm saying? Very shortly next year, hopefully.
Next year,
and we can get there. In the CLPs can get there in the droves. And as far as the trade unions concerned, the trade unions are the lifeblood, the beating heart, undoubtedly, of the Labour Party. Any leadership team, anybody within the Labour Party who believes that isn't, or there shouldn't be a massive role for the trade unions shouldn't be in the Labour Party. We're one and the same thing. We're a hand in glove operation. And you know, one of the sad things is that some leaders of this great party of ours just believe that they should be listening to the trade union general secretaries when there's an election time, and they plead them to come up with wheelbarrows full of finance, of cash, and just tip it out on the doorstep of the Labour Party headquarters, and then the Labour Party can use it for them. Days are gone. There's got to be accountability, responsibility with handling this sort of stuff. But the trade unions are so important. They're important in community organising, political education, because, there's still 7 million people in the trade union movement in this country. It's actually went up considerably.
It's big numbers, and we can expect those to only increase, with obviously the economic impacts of COVID as we go into 2021 are likely to be devastating. We only are just seeing the beginning of that story, rather than the end of it. And the report touched on that as well. This is actually quite a good follow-up question, Ian, to Mandy's question about kind of the CLP and, being in the party. I've got a question from Edward Burton. And Edward says, I can understand his stay and fight position, but what does he have to say to the many thousands of people who join the Labour Party because of Corbyn? We support Corbynism rather than Labourism. Many will drift away back to being unengaged, disappointed idealists if we have nothing or no one to rally behind.
Well, again, similar sort of answer. I might be a little bit abrupt at times, but the Labour Party isn't Jeremy Corbyn's party. The Labour Party is our party. Jeremy Corbyn was absolutely brilliant. He's everything I ever dreamed of as a leader of the party, with his vision of the future. Is a leader of the party, as an individual, Kerry-Anne. He is something else. He's one of the nicest individuals you'll ever meet. In terms of politics, from grassroots to international level, absolutely first class. And what he brought to the table was something really special. I've been a member of the party for 10 times longer than what Jeremy was leader of the party. And now that when people try to calculate that, they'll think I'm 85 years of age. I only look at, but I'm making a point. I've been a member of the party for 32 years. Jeremy was leader from 2015 to 2019, 2020. And I've been a member for longer than that. And we've had challenges. But you know what? I was a miner during the miners' strike, had a great time. That's what developed my character. As we mentioned before, I didn't go to university. But my character was developed by people within the labour and trade union movement. Characters like Skinner, like Tony Bain, like Arthur Scargill, like Mick McGahey, like Rodney Bickerstaff. People who were giants of the movement. And they were the people who really molded me into the character in which I, and what I am, rightly or wrongly. People might dislike that, and that's what happens when you're a politician, somebody who's prepared to step up to the plate. But the Labour Party is a Labour Party. Jeremy, fantastic individual. Jeremy wouldn't want, and he doesn't want a single person to leave the Labour Party. In history, in politics, you've only got a Labour Party leader for so long, right? And we haven't had anybody's had a leader that lasts for 100 years. So, Corbynism, I'm not sure that I ever supported the word Corbynism. I fully supported Jeremy Corbyn's politics as the leader of the Labour Party, and then politics, the left in the struggle, Kerry-Anne, didn't begin in 2015, man. The struggle began centuries ago.
Yeah.
It began centuries ago, and there's people in every single community, the length and the breadth of this country, had people in them towns and them villages and them cities who stepped out on a limb because of socialism. And I'm not prepared to betray any one of those people and turn me back on what they stood for because we've had a difficulty or should we call it a blip in our politics at this moment of time. I'm going to fight on. I'm going to pick up the cudgel. I'm going to continue the struggle. And I'm going to make sure that those challenges we've got, we're best prepared to meet them.
Well, I think you must be psychic this evening, Ian, because we've got another question. I'm going to tag my final question onto it, if you would be so gracious. We've got a question from Andrea Bradley. Andrea asks, what advice can you give to individual members afraid of posting or speaking out in support of Jeremy and the socialist left? That's Andrea's question. And my question, if I could tag it on, would be, what advice do you have for people who are going to stay in the Labour Party about things that they can do to support you in you know, the no holding back report, and in really reorienting this party towards the people it was designed to serve, namely the working class?
Well, you know, what we've got to do, and I'll just say that what we've got to do in the first instance, the only way we can do it is with people in the party who would like to seek the same type of change as what we've been talking about tonight. And we need the Commons, you know, we need the House of Parliament to reflect the communities in which we live. And that's what we've got to start with. And we've got to look at each constituency, who represents them, and we've got to make sure that in the future that we need to, as I say, we need to make sure that the people representing each community, or people who've got a track record in that community, people who reside in the community, people who have got respect in that community, not people who were parachuted in from 300 miles away with a different accent and a different view and a different vision and a different culture than the people who live in these communities. How many times, Kerry-Anne, have we had people parachuted into rock solid Labour places and they haven't made any difference whatsoever? So we've got to try and rebuild these working class communities based on trust, and you can only earn the trust. We've got to make sure that we get out in the communities, you know, like tomorrow, not when we wait till the 4 weeks before the next general election, whether it's in 2024 or not. And we've got to build that community. We've got to be at the lead of the campaigns in that community, because there's lots of things happening. The factories closing, the shops are closing, the high streets being decimated, the local hospital or the clinic or the A&E closing, beds losing, public sector workers, you know, losing their employment. We've got to be at the head of all of those campaigns. In order to do that, we've got to be community organising, looking after each other, listening to what people have got to say. We cannot just be the party that asks for your vote because your father and mother voted that way in the first place. Them days are gone, and we've got to make sure that we're appealing, because political parties haven't got the divine right to remain in existence. They've got to have a reason. Yeah. They've got to stand for something. They've got to have principles. They've got to be honest. They've got to say that's what they stand for. This is what we have to offer. And yes, of course, this offer we can afford to pay for as well. And, you know, that is the very beginning of what we need to do. As I mentioned in my first sentence, we're going to reroute ourselves in these communities and earn back that trust that was lost when people feel they were betrayed. And, you know, it is difficult at this moment in time, the best, you know, about what's happening within the party with regards, you can say this, but you cannot say that. You can perhaps have a conversation at your CLP about that. But if you do, you know, you could face problems with the General Secretary's office. We've got to think of ways and better ways of getting around that. It's a challenge. It's not easy. Yeah. I haven't got the answers. But I know one thing. The answer isn't to bail out because you just leave people like myself and many other wonderful people who want to change the world to do it with fewer people. We want to be building the mass movement based on the labour and trade union history, values, traditions and cultures, and embed them back into our communities. If you want to help, if you want to be part of No Holding Back, we're setting where we are having we're setting a podcast up, Kerry-Anne. We're starting, we're doing our first word tomorrow, which we want to be a little bit lighthearted. So if you want to be part of No Holding Back, get onto the webpage and sign up. And you know, we'll be developing phase 3 of No Holding Back in the coming weeks and coming months. With, you know, the ultimate objective is to bring back class politics, bring back the seats that we've lost, and many more with a coalition. Can I just say that in concluding, we can only win elections with a coalition of bright-minded people, and sneering at somebody who perhaps you disagree with on a number of issues, looking down your nose at people who've got a different accent to yourself or a different skin or a different gender isn't the way forward. There's room in this party for everybody, and we need to understand that. Stop sneering. Let we get to work and make sure that we can deliver what we've talked about tonight. Hopefully before 2024. Get rid of this fella Boris Johnson. He's an absolute disgrace. We've got to get
he's currently taking a wrecking ball to the country.
Well, I think he's already done that. But isn't it surprising, Kerry-Anne, how many people in the communities which we've discussed tonight think that Boris Johnson is one of the lads, Nigel Farage's, you can trust these. You get, and it's amazing. And that's another major challenge. People have got to wake up, smell the coffee about what these people are all about. And that's again, a huge challenge. Sorry for the rant.
You are always welcome to rant with us, Ian, but I am conscious that I said I would get you off this call in 45 minutes, so I'm going to do my best to get you off it within an hour. Before we go, I just did actually want to acknowledge the courage that it took for Ian to participate in this call this evening and even be here at all. We know any time we attempt to talk to a Labour MP, you come under a sort of hailstorm of bullets for daring to go and chat to the Canary, and you face down that storm of bullets to be with us tonight. And I wanted to say, in light of what we're talking about tonight, which is about changing behaviours, about having the courage to fight for what you believe in, I do think Ian has demonstrated that this evening by actually being with us and talking to our audiences. So thank you, Ian, for taking the risk and coming here tonight. Thank you for the No Holding Back report. And I would just encourage everyone to go to the website. It's noholdingback.org. You can read the whole report. It's absolutely fascinating. It contains the direct testimony of these members. So it's quite a cathartic experience as well as anything else, that you can actually see these voices replicated it's all over the United Kingdom. This is every region, every nation that is a part of the United Kingdom. This is not just the North, it's the working class communities of all kinds everywhere. It's probably the biggest listening exercise that the Labour Party has ever done. And let's face it, if New Labour could create itself from a pamphlet in 1992, it might just be possible that the left of the Labour Party could recreate the Labour Party for the 21st century. So again, thank you for your time tonight, Ian. You're an absolute legend. We really appreciate it. Thank you for everyone for listening. And obviously I can't go before reminding you all of the Canary's 5K campaign. We need 5,000 subscribers. You be one of them now. Go to our website, click support, help pay our journalists, help us do more journalism. Thank you very much. Take care, Ian. Thank you.
Thank you.